see. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone who is joining us today live. It's 12 noon here on the East Coast, and we are right on time. We're expecting full house today, and so grateful to have all of you joining us online. We're gonna give just a minute for everyone else to join and get settled. But while we are waiting, we love always engagement and see where everyone is joining from. So if you don't mind, put it in the chat. Where in the country you're joining from, what organization, anything you would like to share with everyone. I'm personally based in New Jersey, just moved to Jersey City, and our speakers today are based in Texas, Dallas. Is that right? I got it right. Okay, wonderful. And we have Illinois, South Carolina, Athens, Georgia, Harrisburg, Charlotte, Oregon. Good morning. Los Angeles. Oh, this is fantastic. Gibson City, Illinois. Welcome, welcome. Wyoming. Always so great to see kind of the whole geography. I get asked sometimes like, oh, which region do you work more with? And I'm like, no, we have everyone joining from across the country. Please. Oh, we have Ottawa, Canada. Welcome. New York here, Austin. Fantastic. Kansas City. Welcome. We love it. What a great company we have today. Well, keep putting it in the chat. We love engagement, but we are going to get started. So again, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our speed learning session this month, which is Website 101 for Nonprofits, Strategy, Structure, and Best Practices. We're going to have 2 sessions this month, first one today, and we're gonna have another session next week, same day, same time. My name is Yulia Zhernovaya. I'm the head of growth at Giveffect. At Giveffect, we help nonprofits to raise more and build stronger connections with their supporters without being buried in manual work. We provide 10-in-1 nonprofit platform that automate fundraising, marketing, volunteer management, operating, so your team can focus on what truly matters, your mission. And today I am so excited to welcome our experts and speakers, Whitney and Keith from CONNECTIVE Agency. Whitney, Keith, I'll pass it to you to share more about yourself to our audience.
Yeah, thank you, Yulia. Thank you so much for having us. We're thrilled to be here to talk about websites, and it's our bread and butter. Also, we love working with nonprofits. CONNECTIVE Agency is a boutique integrated marketing agency based in Dallas, but we've got a global representation of clients. So we bring sort of that nonprofit and private market expertise to the table. So I'm the executive vice president at the agency, and I've been in the industry for over 20 years now. So excited to share some insights with you. I'll hand it over to Keith.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hi. Yes. Thanks again for having us. My name is Keith Bates. I'm vice president of digital solutions, and so I help manage all of our web development projects, oversee development of them, also help research any digital tools, platforms that might be needed to help propel the website, such as CRMs or donation management systems. We've worked on a couple projects that utilized Giveffect. And yeah, it's been really a fun adventure delving into that environment, working with more nonprofits and help getting them to the finish line to help drive contributions that they need.
Amazing. Well, we are so excited to have you here today, and we're just so excited for the topic because it's been a dream of mine to talk about websites, and we get so many questions about it. And before we jump into kind of the topic of today's session, I wanted to share a little bit of the data that we were able to gather prior to the session. For everyone who answered the questions on the registration page, thank you so much. And I think it's very, very insightful. So For all our attendees, we asked a couple of questions. And first question was, how would you rate your website, right? Do you like it? Does it need improvement or help? And interestingly, 15% responded that they love it. 75% responded that it's okay and it can use some improvement. And then 10% responded that no, they need help. Hence, I think they're here today. But what is also very interesting that when we ask when was the last time nonprofits who join us today updated the website, majority, which is 50%, said that they updated website within the last year, and 20% said that within more than 5 years ago. Lastly, what I found extremely insightful is that 44% of those who updated website last year still said that they need improvement. So that's kind of where I saw like, wow, this topic is so important, whether you updated your website yesterday, 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I think there's a lot of questions that needs to be addressed and a lot of, basic storytelling and other things that we need to cover. So without further ado, let's dive in. We're going to spend the next 15 minutes kind of interview style, and then the last 10 minutes will be live Q&A. So for everyone who is joining us live, please utilize Q&A section at the bottom of your screen, and we will try to go through all the questions that we received today. All right. So just working with nonprofits in general, and also hearing this data that I just shared, I wanted to start kind of with this, I guess, more simple, but so important questions. Like, why is in this DNA, right? Why is the well-designed website is so important for nonprofits today, and how it can serve more than a, digital brochure, or more than like we have a website, but that's okay.
Yeah, that's such a great question. And so much about today, I think we'll be talking about nonprofits specifically, but I'd like to take a step back. A nonprofit is a business. And so that same level of effort into your website presence and communications needs to be used. Just because you're a nonprofit doesn't mean that you have to take it a step down from like a private market business. So that to start, it is also your chance at a first impression. There are people who will see your website first, but they might also meet you at an event and then go check your website out to make sure you are who you say you are, and that you are trustworthy, and that you've got your act together, and are good stewards of donation funds. So it is that outfit you wear to your first meeting. Your website should be that sort of presence for you.
That's so interesting. Your outfit. This is the first time I hear this comparison. I really like it, right? Because it is your first impression in a sense. Someone's going to go to your page and that's how you represent yourself. That's amazing. What would you say are the most important elements when it comes to the website, right? Or even maybe digital campaign to engage visitors and drive actions?
Yeah, I think, when I first sit down to write a campaign or website content, take a moment to reflect and think about what it is that makes me so passionate about the issue. And if you think about what it is that makes you jump out of bed every morning, what is this challenge that your organization faces, or the people you're serving, what are they facing every day? And you're passionate about that challenge, right? That problem, and you're in this unique position to bring a solution. And you need your donors and your volunteers to be part of that solution. So really clearly articulating that passion, the problem faced, and how these people can be part of the solution, that stuff needs to come off right away on your homepage. That's your story.
Awesome. What are maybe some of the things that you see that nonprofit miss when it comes to their main page?
Yeah, with a main homepage, I think having that compelling story, that why behind the work, if you will, and also the real life stories that really showcase the work, like what it is you're doing. So, um, what do the outcomes look like? What does impact look like? Who are you helping? So that
Mm.
the text and the messaging and the imaging or imagery and photos and videos, those are really key. It is amazing to me that sometimes I'll still see websites, especially for nonprofits, that they're not super clear on that mission and how it
Mm.
is that they seek to fulfill that mission. So really getting into that clear value proposition.
Yeah. I guess sometimes even I'm on the website, right? And I need to go to About Us section, and then there is another drop down, and then I'll get to the what is our mission. So if I
Mhm.
hear it's just more like that should be forefront of your website without someone spending 10 clicks to getting to that.
Yeah. In a nonprofit world, I believe so. A lot of corporate websites you'll see an
Yeah.
About Us
So
section and it's buried, but
maybe
this
it's too
is
much
really.
in your face. It's like this is all we
Mhm.
do. Oh, amazing. What are some of the red flags that not that you look at the website and like this website probably needs an update or maybe overhaul? Do you have any of those kind of to share?
Yeah. So analytics can really help here. If you don't have any kind of analytics set up on your website, you should you should really go and do that. Google Analytics is free, easy to set up, but that'll really help tell you
Mm.
that kind of give you paint a picture of the health of your website and how relevant it is because you see where the traffic's going or where they're trying to go, where are they dropping off, and how long are they spending.
Mm.
Um, from the management perspective, that would be the first thing to check to see, how is your website performing, and then tweak things based on where everyone's trying to get to from there. In addition to that, you want to make sure your site is optimized for different
Mm.
experiences. So desktop, tablets, mobile, super important that you're not alienating those users
Mm.
using different devices. And then, and this kind of transcends everything, but even just ensuring that the website is ADA compliant. So for
Mhm.
those who have any kind of disabilities, visual, audible, or cognitive, definitely super important in this day and age, especially that your website is well optimized to
Mhm.
accommodate those with various disabilities. If they're not all big red flags.
I'm curious, because how do you ensure or how do you know when it comes to ADA compliance, right? What do you do as a nonprofit to even?
To start that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's a lot of great online tools out there that can basically audit the
Okay.
website. You just pop in your URL
Oh,
and
nice.
it'll just spit back a report and show you some of the more glaring issues. Sometimes they'll be kind of weighted or graded on significance or importance.
Mm.
But yeah, you can really Google any of that. There's a lot of great platforms that'll do this for you. And then, of course, they have
Mhm.
services that'll you can use to further enhance your website to make it more ADA compliant.
Mm. Nice. And then your second point, you mentioned mobile, well, optimizing for different tools, right? But I'm curious specifically about mobile optimization because we're all on the phones all day long. So I'm just
Hmm.
curious if you've seen any mistakes that teams make specifically when it comes to mobile optimization, or if you have any advice how to improve it in general.
Yeah, mobile can sometimes be a little bit tricky to test
Mhm.
for. As a developer, there are a lot of great tools that help us check those different experiences,
Mhm.
optimize. But the biggest mistake we usually see is a lack of testing,
Mhm.
honestly, um, or not putting a lot of focus on that mobile experience. In fact, anymore we're s- we're starting to see a movement where rather than focusing on a desktop experience, starting to do what's called mobile first and
Mhm.
creating and optimizing around mobile primarily, and then those other experiences kind of follow behind that. But um, but yeah, definitely testing, just making sure that you're, optimizing, and not just a matter of rearranging content to fit that experience,
Mhm.
but making sure your engagement points, are work well on a device. So buttons are big enough
Mm,
to tap, and that text is legible, that kind
mhm.
of thing. So yeah, testing is usually the one thing that kind of goes out the door, especially as the project nears the end of its life.
Definitely look at the analytics that Keith mentioned earlier. We
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
clients whose 80% of traffic is on mobile. And then we have
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
clients where, yeah, that's a huge audience. Then we have clients, especially in the nonprofit world, where the people who are maybe being served by the organization are on mobile, and then your donor volunteer audience are more desktop.
Mhm.
So really thinking about who it is you're working with and who you're serving to make sure that experience is
Yeah. And
is well.
even kind of going back what we were talking about before was with ADA again.
Mhm.
A lot of people use their phones as assistive technology.
Mhm.
So again, making sure that mobile experience is ADA compliant.
Mm. That's really good to know. And then I wanted to follow up on the analytic piece as well, right? Because you mentioned Google Analytic, it's free, right? It's a great tool. But maybe for someone who is not too familiar with Google Analytics, or maybe it's like their first time using it, you mentioned some of the points to look for, but maybe if you narrow down to like three things to look for when you look at Google Analytics, what would you suggest?
Yeah. It kind of depends on what you're wanting to find, but definitely some important points are again how long people are spending, the user spending
Mhm.
on the page or pages. How are they getting to those pages? Google Analytics will kind of show you the pages that they're accessing, and it may have changed since they updated to version 4, but you used to be able to kind of see the flow, like where were
Mhm.
they entering the site and what pages were they hitting along the way and then
Okay.
dropping off. But yeah, and then of course, just how many users are actually on your site at a given moment. I definitely wanted to look at maybe the technology that they're using. So devices, or is it primarily mobile, or is it mobile
Mhm.
mainly
Mhm.
desktop
Yep.
experience? Um, let's see. I think those are a couple of
Good
those
start.
are yeah, those are just a few that I would start with. And then from there, it's a rabbit hole. There's just so much information that you'll start to glean from. It's a
Yeah,
great
I can
tool.
imagine. That's why I was
Yeah.
like, what would be suggested for you once to start? But no, that sounds fantastic. I'm curious that, so looking at today's attendees and our data, we have about like 50% of those who are joining us today who haven't updated their website for several 3 to 5 or even more years, right? So I'm just curious for someone who is thinking about the update or overhaul of the website, like where should they begin, or maybe what kind of small things they can do that would lead to meaningful improvements.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's several aspects to a website to consider here. There's the user behavior and the user experience. There's
Mhm.
the content and your overall organization strategy. And then there's the actual technical maintenance and performance of the site. So, um, my wheelhouse is really looking at the strategy of a website. What are the users? How are the users interacting with the site? Are they getting what they need? And we
Mhm.
also talk to internal stakeholders, external stakeholders as well to make sure, okay, are you able to access what you need? Are you
Mhm.
hearing any feedback from people about the website? That continuous conversation, do that monthly, do that quarterly, because your website should be a living, breathing organism. It should
Mhm.
not be a set it and forget it kind of
Right.
thing. So having conversations and learning and adjusting, and then I think that's really key.
So would you say that even either surveying or maybe having a few conversations with donors, volunteers, if you're providing services, people who are requesting those services, kind of having those conversations from different viewpoints, and then learning about the user experience, and then utilizing or adjusting your website accordingly.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's something that doesn't have to take a ton of time. You can set up some questions that you use periodically and just have those conversations. You know, it could be a 45-minute quick phone call with any stakeholder to learn about their experience.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, sometimes I'm guilty of that. When you think about the change, it's like change equals a lot of work, but it sounds like in many cases it doesn't have to be that, right? It's more about knowing what you want to ask for and identifying those stakeholders, and as simple as having conversations and getting the data that can be very impactful, whether you're changing website or doing other activities.
Yeah, it could be as simple as needing to move an item in your main navigation to make it more clear that someone needs to click there. It might be clear to you because you were part of the build process, but it may not be clear to everyone. Something as simple as that, or bigger with, you know, campaign communications or content to support some of the work. That storytelling piece could be a bigger lift, but also just as important.
And speaking of just along the same topic, I think one question that everyone has on their mind when it comes to resources, right? One is the time commitment, but the other question is when it comes to budgeting, like what is a nonprofit? You should even like think about. I don't know if you have any range to share, just to have a benchmark for someone who is thinking about potentially working with agency or doing something internally.
Yeah, great question. And it is a wide range. You know, you could spend anywhere from $1,000 to $100,000 on a website. We have seen both.
Wow.
And you could spend literally a day and spin up a website on Squarespace. If you're doing it yourself, not advised. But it can be done. Or we have spent a year on a website before. And that was okay. The client was okay with that because it was a deep, intense website with lots of resources. So I think understanding what it is that you want, what does your website need to achieve, you know, for those key audiences, and then understanding how you want to structure your work. So do you want an agency who's going to go do all of the planning, your stakeholder interviews, write the content, design the site and develop it, and then maintain it? Great. It will cost you more, but you've got a full solution there. Or do you need just, do you have an in-house designer who's going to design it and then you need to farm out the development? That's an approach. So understanding who needs to do what and by when will really help you as you go out and seek bids for support.
Amazing. Time, by the way, flies. I don't know how we're getting through so many questions. And I appreciate everyone who is putting questions in the Q&A session. Please keep adding them. We'll just have maybe 1-2 more questions and we go to Q&A. I feel like we needed like 3 sessions, not 2, to dive into everything. But just a couple of, I guess, quick questions. And for everyone, today is our one-on-one, right? And next week, we're going to be diving more into the storytelling and kind of nitty-gritty setup on your website, all right? But quick question, because I think this comes up a lot of time, is how can nonprofit use say call to action strategically and to encourage visitors to make immediate actions?
Yeah, I think this goes back to your audiences, knowing who it is you need to communicate with, and really mapping out a journey for each of those audiences. It can be very different for your donors, for your volunteers, and from those who receive your services. So having just an outline of what you need each of those audiences to see, feel, think, and then do. What is the ultimate goal? And so as you go through your site and you're telling the stories and you're messaging what needs to be messaged, having opportunities throughout for them to take action and make it very clear. So it could really vary.
Fantastic. Oh, that sounds good. And it just made me feel that I like how you always bring it to the whole spectrum of different things that nonprofit operates. When I go to the website, a lot of time I just see donate button everywhere. And I think do you have any, I guess, advice there how to balance it, right? It just, I think it's going, and I think you mentioned that I think it's going back to who do you want to come to your website? How do they need to engage, right? And always look from those different lenses versus just from one lens.
Yeah, sometimes you just have to put on a different hat and take the approach, put yourself in that person's shoes, which is a lot easier to do when you actually interview them early on, to talk to them about a website project, what they would like to see, why they go to your website and what they want to get. That really gives you the answer, and then you can create that journey. We've got a website we did for a legal aid organization. At the very front of the site, it says get help or give help. Simple. Giving help means a lot of different things. And so there's those options there, but it's really clear, get or give help.
Yeah, I think, and if you have that website handy, would you mind to kind of maybe share an example for everyone?
Absolutely. Here's legal aid for Northwest Texas. So get help. I need legal help. Or am I even eligible? Or give help. I want to volunteer, donate. I want to work here.
Wow, that's amazing. Wonderful. Is there anything else on that website you think will be kind of from Nonprofit 101 point of view of this sessions will be helpful for everyone to see in terms of best practices?
Yeah, I think, some folks I think might be wondering, how do you really make a website that meets the needs of a lot of different stakeholders in your organization? So you have a lot of different programs. And I think you can, when you think through your site structure and the information hierarchy of it, you can really achieve a lot. You could be a lot of things to a lot of different people. And so I think the legal aid site is really rich with content about legal topics, different ways to apply, and also information about some of their locations and eligibility. So, definitely check that out and look at what that journey looks like for each of the audiences.
Wonderful. Tara is on our team. If you can put the link to Legal Aid's website on the chat for anyone who wants to take a look, that will be really fantastic. But we're almost on time. We have a lot of questions, so I want to change the gears and go through audience live questions. I know our session is supposed to finish in 2 minutes, but Keith, Whitney, if you're okay to stay for a few more minutes to go through the questions, is that okay?
Yeah,
okay, wonderful. So for everyone on the call, if you would love to stay, if you would like to stay through Q&A, please stay with us. If not, this session is recorded, so you will receive a copy of this session. We'll also have a second session next week where we again will be diving more into storytelling and how to set up your donation page and what's the connection to technology and CRM and so on. The link to sign up for next week's session will be in the chat. So please make sure you sign up, and we'll be, again, same time, same day here next week. But let's go through some of the questions. So we have the first question: how to get better buy-in from internal stakeholders to invest time, money, effort on a more robust website? Yeah. Oh, that's a good question.
It is. I think a lot of nonprofits, and I might be misspeaking here, but you all are nonprofit leaders are super smart and I think super data oriented. And so when you have data that backs up how people are interacting with your website, the quantitative data of website traffic analytics and the qualitative data of interviews with stakeholders, you cannot argue with that. Now, what you spend ultimately and how much time you spend on it is really up to the agency and your budget. But the data really tells the story and paints that picture.
Yeah, wonderful. Next question, I think, Keith, is more for you. You did mention there's a lot of tools out there, right, for ADA accessibility and compliance. Any tools that kind of like on top of your mind that you can suggest for everyone to take a look?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the more popular ones that we tend to use is called Accessibility. Um, and it's got great tools. So it'll, like I said before, you can just pop in your URL of
Mm,
your website. It'll audit the website and spit back a report that you can use to go further update the website. It's
mm,
also got a really neat tool that you can subscribe to. It's a widget, and basically it'll allow a user that's using assistive technology or has a disability that they can go in and
mm,
fine tune the website to accommodate their needs. So they can adjust background colors, font colors, text sizes, the actual fonts that are
mm,
being used. Um, so really powerful tool. So that's one, Accessibility. Another one that we've used before, but not a lot of experience, but it does a lot of what Accessibility does.
mm,
It's called Equal Web, and it's basically the same thing. It will give you that capability of auditing your website and seeing where there are pitfalls for those with disabilities. And then they also have their own
mm.
widget that you can install on your website to allow that user to further engage and fine tune the experience for their
Yeah,
needs.
it's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. That's super
sure.
helpful. And thank you for the links in the chat as well, Whitney. Um, let's go to the next question. So I have been researching to move from Nation Builder website feature to a different drag and drop platform. We need a better design capabilities. I found this combo, WordPress, Eliminator, VP Fusion plugin to integrate the website with Nation Builder. What do you think? Do you have any suggestions there?
So with WordPress, uh, the one of the tools you mentioned, the name's escaping me right now. I think it used to be called WP Bakery, but it was it's a great tool because it's very robust. It gives you a lot of flexibility to build pages. On the other hand, it can be very daunting to use.
Mm, mm,
So, and another thing that we've noticed is it adds a lot of markup to
mm,
your front-facing pages, and that itself can cause SEO problems. It can also
mm,
cause ADA problems because the excessive code, it can confuse the like Google or Bing that's trying to go on an index
mm,
that data or that information. There might be something that could prevent it from doing so effectively. So that is a good quick and dirty solution if you're
mm,
wanting something more of a step up from like Squarespace. If you're
mhm,
wanting to get into the WordPress platform where you can build themes. However, if you have the time and the budget, I would highly recommend going with like a custom solution build.
mm,
We tend to use a plugin called Advanced Custom Fields that allows us to really fine tune the user experience to the way we design and build.
mm,
And it also can be very simple for the person who's managing the website who has to go in and update the content. Very simple for them to do so as well.
mhm.
So that's what I would recommend. But yeah, if you're needing something that's quick and dirty, you can go and use those other plugins and even buy
Mm,
prefabricated themes, which I don't recommend that either because there's a lot of baggage that can come with it. But it'll work and
mhm.
it'll do what you need. It just might not always be as effective.
Thank you, Keith. That's amazing. The next question is, our website is currently for both donors as well as for military members to apply for programs and support. Wondering from a best practice perspective if we would be better to separate the two, like many hospital foundation do, whether there is one site for donors and one for those who need access to support.
I think that's a great question. And we see a lot of people start to segment um, their materials and
Mhm.
communications. Sometimes they even have separate brands for different audiences they serve or programs. I would
Yeah.
caution against it because now you've got two different platforms that you need to maintain. And then you want your donors and your volunteers to also see what it is you're doing for the people you're
Mhm.
serving ultimately. And I think that crossover is nice. Um, I think when you have a great audience journey map for all those key people that you need to communicate with, and a good information hierarchy to start with, you can achieve one single website that serves all of those needs.
Thank you, Whitney. Yeah, that's kind of also in conjunction. I think it was nicely done on the um, legal aid website, right? When they have both sections. Wonderful. Next question is from Riley. Just want to make sure we optimize the site without overloading with content, which is what we struggle with. So any advice there?
You know, that's really interesting. I think if you're talking about overloading with content in regards to like a page design and page layout, because it's just a
Mm.
lot going on a page where it looks a little cluttered. I think you can look at some design options for that, some layout designs that really help clean that up. I don't think a site could be ever overloaded with content. I
Mm.
feel like
Mm.
people often don't have enough content. Just organizing it, making sure it's clear,
Mhm.
that's the key. So I think having a really good design layout would help with that.
Awesome. And that's makes great point. And then next one, we have a question from Paige. I know this might be specific answer depending on the organization, but there are generally a few key navigation tabs or suggestions for what flow for the navigation bar seems to be more effective without becoming confusing. So again,
Hmm.
with understanding that each organization is different, I guess like generally speaking, is there any good formula, I guess, for that?
Yeah, and I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record about audience journeys, uh,
I don't know.
but it's so informative when you go through that exercise. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
we've built sites that have a very simple navigation bar with just like 4 or 5 items. And that's it. You click it, you go to the page, and that could even be different audience names. Or we've built sites that have what we call the mega menu. So you hover over a topic and then main navigation, it drops down and reveals a lot of content options and navigation options there. And that, when done well, can be incredibly helpful for the user to guide them through your site. So I think the doing that audience journey mapping and then having a site map that just shows your content hierarchy will help you inform, like, see, okay, I might need some more menu options here. This might need to be a drop down because these topics are related. I think those exercises will help you get there.
And
Thank you.
just to further embellish a little bit, if you do have a need for having drop down menus in your main navigation, I would try and keep those as minimal as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, we try and keep it to just one drop down menu. Sometimes you may need a secondary menu that flies out from that drop down menu,
Mm-hmm.
but you can see, just like even thinking about that, that can get kind of crazy and confusing for the user. So definitely want to try and keep those as simplified and direct as possible, so the user hasn't having to guess too much and work as hard to find this information.
Mm-hmm.
An example on the screen where we took an audience focused approach with the main navigation. You hover over your audience, you get options for them to kind of identify with and see where they want to go based on what they're interested in.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes a lot of, yeah, this is really good to see. Last question that we have for today's session is from Elizabeth. For someone shopping for a new web developer, what question should I ask to ensure we will find the right fit? Oh, this is a great question. Or maybe how can we best prepare?
Mhm. I think Keith will have some thoughts. I can share some of mine. Having your goals, like what it is you're trying to achieve with your website. That could be just general communication goals, reaching certain audiences. It could be donation revenue goals, increasing your volunteer base, understanding that and who your audiences are. As you interview partners, those partners should really be able to understand that and help you create a plan and hopefully build a proposal for you to meet those goals.
Keith, any advice from your side?
Yeah. Depending on, what platform you're going to be working from, I would obviously start by looking at their previous work, and what that looks like, and even have them kind of talk you through their methodology of how they approached building that. What was that collaboration process like for them when they built some of those sites? And I would also want to know that they're just up on current trends in terms of development practices. What platforms are they comfortable with? If they work in WordPress a lot, do they tend to just buy a theme and repurpose it, or are they more ingrained where they know like the syntax of the platform and can build things from the ground up rather than relying on pre-built items. And then I think those would be the two things I would start with. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So thank you so much. I absolutely, there's so many questions, and there was a lot of questions we didn't get to cover today from the registration page, but we really appreciate Whitney, Keith, your time, your expertise sharing with everyone, and also everyone who joined our call today. We're going to conclude our session with that, but as you know, we have another session next Wednesday. We're going to be diving into more storytelling and everything about your website. So we hope to join you next Wednesday, and you will be receiving a recording and some additional materials from this session. Lastly, if you would like to get in touch with myself, Whitney, or Keith, our colleague Tara will be putting some contact information in the chat, and myself, I'm sure the Connective Agency would love to get in touch with you. Thank you so much. Have a fantastic Wednesday, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye.